Hey everyone, my name is Becca and welcome to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. If this is your first time with us, welcome. And if you've read a first chapter with us before, welcome back. We are in for a treat today because we are going to be reading the first chapter of Finally Seen by Kelly Yang. You may be familiar with some of Kelly Yang's other work, most notably Front Desk, and more recently, New From Here was also written by Kelly Yang. So we are going to start by reading the front inside cover, which gives us a little synopsis of what this book is going to be about. My sister got to grow up with my parents. Me, I grew up with postcards from my parents. When 10-year-old Lina Gao steps off the plane in Los Angeles, it's her first time in America and her first time seeing her parents and her little sister in 5 years. She's been waiting for this moment every day while she lived with her grandmother in Beijing, getting teased by kids at school who called her left behind girl. Finally, her parents are ready for her to join their fabulous life in America. Except it's not exactly like in the postcards. One, school's a lot harder than she thought. When she mispronounces some word in English on the first day, she decides she simply won't talk ever again. Two, her chatty little sister has no problem with English and seems to do everything better than Lina, including knowing exactly the way to their parents' hearts. Three, they live in an apartment, not in a house like Mom's letters, and they owe a lot of back rent from the pandemic. And Mom's plan is to pay it back, and Mom's plan to pay it back sounds a little frothy. As she reckons with her hurt, Lina tries to keep a lid on her feelings, both at home and at school. When her teacher starts facing challenges for her latest book selection, it will take all of Lina's courage and resilience to get over her fear and in order to choose a future where she's finally seen. All right, so that's a little bit of what this book is going to be about. We are going to dive on into that first chapter. And teachers, if you are reading this with your students, you can grab a free handout to follow along. There is a link in the description. Chapter 1. I listen to the quiet hum of the plane and the not so quiet flutter of my heart in my chest. This is it. Another 6 hours and I will finally see my parents and my sister again. I try to picture Mom's and Dad's face when I land. Except I keep picturing Marge and Homer Simpson, only Asian, with shorter hair, and a less smart Lisa, hopefully. I guess that's what happens when you haven't seen your family in 5 years and you've watched a lot of subtitled Simpsons. I was starting to give up on the whole going to America thing until my mom called 6 weeks ago. Lau told me, "You're doing your middle school applications," Mom said, "and you're writing an essay on your parents being in America?" I nodded, coiling the phone cord around my fingers. "Is that not a good topic?" I asked. "No," she said. "It's just, what are you going to say?" I shrugged. I liked writing, but not as much as I liked drawing pictures. But art's a sure way to get kicked out of any school in Beijing, let alone Beijing Normal Middle School number 3, where I was applying. It was my Aunt Jing's middle school. She now had a fancy tech job in Shenzhen. She says there's no future for artists in China. Beijing Normal would get the art out of me and turn me into a steady workhorse, just like her. Well, Mom asked. I felt a rush of heat spread across my forehead. Here was my chance to tell her how I really felt about being left behind all these years. I was only 5 years old when she left. I thought she was going on a work trip. I didn't even understand. Most of all, how could she take Millie, my baby sister, and not me? My sister got to grow up with parents. Me, I grew up with postcards from my parents. But as usual, my voice was locked in the chamber of my throat. There are things I don't want to tell anyone, well, except Lau. My grandmother Lau is my moon and my Wilson, like the volleyball in Castaway, another movie I binged. She is my companion in my waiting city. That's what Beijing feels like, just me and Lau waiting. It used to be me, Lau, and Lao Yi, but last year when Lao Yi passed away, our trio of tea leaves went down to 2. And now I am Lau's human alarm clock, I wake her up every day at 6 a.m. Dumpling steamer, pooer brewer, flower waterer, and medicine fetcher. I know how much she needs me. I'm all she's got left. Which is why some feelings are too hard to even tell her. Instead, I catch them and tuck them behind my cheek. Lao Lao said that's the way to succeed in China. Every morning, Lao Lao reminds me, go to school, make your parents proud, and watch your words, lest they label you a bad apple. She grew up in the area of the Cultural Revolution, and her father was thrown in jail for being a bad apple. Even though that was a long time ago, the memory of it never really left. She's always telling me to sew up half of my mouth. I imagine an invisible thread running along my mouth, my lips stitched like a sock. But the thing about some feelings is they just won't go away. Instead, they form a tight ball at the base of my throat, where they sit and they wait, planning their escape from the thread. And one day, just when you least expect it, they shoot out like a rocket. That's exactly what happened that rainy Beijing spring day when Mom called. Do you really want to go to Beijing normal number 3? Mom asked. I looked over at my Lao Lao, craning her head eagerly to catch snippets of our conversation. She put her knitting needles down, massaging her hand. Her arthritis had gotten so much worse since Lao Yi passed. She could hardly keep knitting. The doctors in China had warned her that this day would come. They told her to do more acupuncture, to get out and exercise. But Lao Lao was born in the year of the ox. She does not like anyone telling her what to do. I turned away from Lao Lao, held the phone close to my face, and cupped a hand around my mouth. No, I whispered. I want to go to school in America. Please, Mama. I want to come. And with that, I chose my future over my past. A hand on my arm pushes me awake. Lina Gao? The flight attendant asks. I rub my eyes awake. She smiles and says to me in Chinese, we're moving you up to first class so you can get out first when we land. I blink in confusion. I reach for my sketch pad. I was in the middle of working on a sketch of Lao Lao gardening, but as I look up, my eyes nearly pop when I see the flight tracker on the screen. We're almost there. Your escort will be waiting as soon as we get to LAX to take you to your parents. I leap up from my seat. Let's go! I follow the flight attendant up the long aisle to first class, staring at all the people stretched out in beds with their noise-canceling headphones and cotton candy slippers. These are airplane apartments. I take a seat in one of the cabins and reach for the fancy first-class cotton slippers. I am so saving these for Lao Lao. I wonder if she likes her new nursing home. I feel a tug of guilt thinking about it, but Aunt Jing said it wasn't necessary. She and Uncle Hugh both live in Shenzhen, which is about 1,200 miles away from Beijing. And they both have 996 tech jobs. A 996 job means you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. They're the envy of the country because they make the most money. But it also means there's no way my aunt can be a tea brewer for my Lao Lao. So they take me and Lao Lao to visit the nursing home. I remember the floors were very shiny, almost like you could go rollerblading on them. I pictured a bunch of elderly folk rollerblading. And then I had to bite on my cheek to stop myself from giggling, because it wasn't funny. The rooms were bright, with big windows that allowed a team of nurses to look in at all times. Aunt Jing said she got Lao Lao the biggest room of all, a private room. It was the nicest room in the entire nursing home. But to Lao Lao, it was like living inside a fishbowl. She didn't like the idea at all. No way, she said, stomping her walking cane down the ground. Not happening. I am a free spirit. I need to be able to roam around the park and go see my friends. They can come see you, Aunt Jing insisted. That's why we're putting you in a retirement home in Beijing, so your friends can come visit anytime. Lao Lao has 2 good park friends, Chen Nene, a grandma who loves to dance, and Wang Nai Nai, whose daughter is also in America. I've never seen either of them come to our house, though. Why can't I just stay by myself? Lao Lao asked, peeking at my aunt. Because, Ma, your arthritis and osteoporosis, it's all getting worse, and now that Dad's gone, frankly, you should have gone into a retirement community a long time ago, Aunt Jing said. But you had Lina. And I loved every minute of it, sweet child, Lao Lao said, patting my hand. I felt a tear escape. This was all my fault. No, don't you cry, Lao Lao told me. She nodded to my aunt, and with a shaking hand, she signed the papers. I put my hand to the airplane window and whisper with all my heart, I'm so sorry, Lao Lao. I promise I will find a way to bring you over. I will find a way to get you out of the waiting city, too. 15 minutes to landing, the captain announces on the speaker. I immediately grab the stash of free goodies next to the cotton candy slippers. I stuff as many as I can into my backpack. Socks, sleeping masks, you name it. I add the stash to my collection of Chinese snacks I've brought over for my almost new family. I've packed wheat flour cake, hawthorn flakes, pumpkin chips, and white rabbit candies for them, hoping the candies fill them with the sweet guilt for leaving me behind. I gaze out the window at the wispy clouds. The Los Angeles houses sprawl across the land, stretching all the way to the shimmering blue sea. I've never seen the ocean before. Before Lao Yi passed, we talked about going to Beiding, the closest beach to Beijing, but it was always too hard with Lao Yi's work and health. He was a magazine editor. Even after he retired, he had kept going into the office. He said working was the best way to stay young, but Lao Lao secretly suspected it was so he could keep eating lunch at his favorite fried dumpling place next to his office. My Lao Yi had heart disease and diabetes. He used to joke that at his age, heart disease and diabetes were like stamps in a passport, signs of a life well lived. I wish Lao Yi had actual stamps in his passport, though, and more time to get them. But at 72, he had a stroke in the taxi on his way home from work. We didn't believe it when we were sitting in the hospital waiting area. Lao Lao and I were talking about going to the beach and pushing Lao Yi to actually retire after this. When the doctor delivered the news, all I remember is my grandma falling to the ground, pounding the stone-cold floor, crying, "You get back here, you old goat! Don't you dare leave me!" But her beloved goat was already gone. Lao Lao's voice comes burrowing into my head as the plane starts to descend. This is different. Remember, we may be 6,000 miles apart, but I'm right there in your heart. Anytime you want to talk to me, just put your hand over your chest and I'll feel it, sweet child. As the turbulence jiggles my butt, I open my mouth like I'm about to eat a gigantic bowsy. The tears running down my cheeks. This is it, Lao Lao. I made it. We touch down at 9:58 a.m. As the plane taxis, a flight attendant comes up to me. Are you ready? I'm ready, I announce. And that is the end of Finally Seen, Chapter 1. I'm very curious to see how Lina adjusts to America, how she adjusts to her family, who she hasn't seen in 5 years. It's going to be a lot of changes all at once. And I do apologize for any potential mispronunciations that might have occurred during this first chapter. And that's all. Thank you so much, friends, for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, I would love if you liked and subscribed so you can be notified next time we have a new First Chapter Friday. And I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Have a wonderful day.